Do you need a quick and cozy gift to make for your friends and family for the holidays? The Scandinavian Snowflake is a great project. It's very quick and easy to do, and it creates a very beautiful piece that you can give to your friends and family as gifts or to decorate your own home. In this tutorial, I'm going to share how to incorporate color into your snowflake and how to make a miniature snowflake. If you haven't seen last week's video, I taught how to create a neutral colored snowflake. You can find that in the little I or in the description below. For a free instruction manual to go along with this project, sign up for our VIP library where you'll get access to our library of printables. You can sign up using this QR code or the link in the description below. It will walk you through how to access the library, print out or download the instruction manual for this, which has all of the tools and materials you will need and photo instructions to walk you through making a snowflake. Another benefit of the VIP library is you'll get notified first of any color drops or new basket drops that we have in our shop. So if you're interested in dyed reed and want some themed color drops with colors that go together, that are seasonal, and that are prepped and ready for you to use in your basket projects, we will be notifying you of those through those emails. So sign up using the QR code or the link in the description below. Now, the first snowflake I want to show you is the miniature snowflake. So these are actually 6 inches long. So you'll cut pieces, you'll need 20 pieces from 1/4 inch wide flat reed that are 6 inches long. These are pretty short and can be a little bit harder to work with than the larger ones that I did in last week's video, but do not fret, we will accomplish this together. Get your pieces wet, and especially if your pieces are more brittle, which sometimes the smaller reeds tend to be, you're going to allow them to soak for a little bit longer than normal. And then gather up 5 pieces. We're going to line these up. And I don't actually have center marks on these. You can put center marks so that they're nice and lined up evenly, or just make sure that your ends line up here. I'm going to put this on top there. And then I'm going to come in and weave opposite. So over, under, over, under, over. So we're alternating. Line that up in the middle. I'm going to do a little check to make sure I'm in the middle there. So I should be at the 3 inch. Yep, that looks good. And then put in a new piece opposite of that first one. So where I was over here, I'm going to go under, over, under, over, under. For whatever reason, miniature in basket weaving is often, or smaller in basket weaving and weaving tangential projects can be a little bit trickier than larger projects. And I think it's because it's a lot of fine detail work and you're trying to grab something that's a little bit harder to grab. So this one is definitely doable, but it just takes a bit of patience. And if your reed is nice and wet, then it's going to work a lot better. So I'm weaving these so that I'm creating a grid that's opposite or alternating. So I have 3 here. I'm going to change the location of my spoke weight. If you don't have a spoke weight, you can use a piece of wood or a small book or just something that's going to hold your pieces down. Even a can of food would work, can of tuna or something like that, to hold your pieces down so that you can have your hands free. Now with these 3 pieces in, I've got 1 down the center, 2 to one side of that. Now I'm going to weave opposite that first one, 2 on the other side of this center piece. Then we'll have this little grid. So what we're going to do is put a little dollop of glue on each of these corners and then clamp them in place so it holds them. Especially with this little miniature snowflake, that's going to be a huge help in holding things together so it doesn't just pop out and fall apart on us. So just come in and get this nice and snug. We want our center to be no more than 2 inches from outside of the reed to outside of the reed. Same thing in the other direction. And then we're going to put a little dollop of glue in the corners here. I'm using a Tight Bond adhesive. This is made for metal, wood, ceramics, and it happens to work on reed. Though I found if your reed is dry, it doesn't stick as well, or it doesn't dry as quickly, which is counterintuitive to me. But for some reason, it activates best when your reed is wet. Maybe because the surface is more rough, I don't know. It just does. If you happen to know why this dries better when the reed is wet, let me know in the comments. I'd love to find out. And then I'll clamp those in place to hold them. And it takes about 30 seconds to dry, so it's pretty quick. We're going to clamp these and then do a second little setup like this. So I'll set this aside, make sure your clamps hold that nice and tight, and do the same thing. We're going to weave, go 5 parallel to each other, weave that same grid pattern we did the first time around. Set that up. These are awesome ornaments. They're small enough that you can hang them on a tree. You can also make these out of paper strips, and something that I think would be cool that I've never done is to do a paint pour on paper and then use that paper to create paper strips and then make snowflakes with that. I think it would look really beautiful with the paint pour. Any sort of decorative paper, even thick wrapping paper would probably work. I like the texture of the reed because it almost has a woody texture to it, and it is very substantial, so it holds its shape. It's not going to smash when you store it. It's pretty sturdy, and yeah, it's not going to break very easily. The little ones are a little bit more delicate just because they're small, but they do withstand a lot of wear as well. And later in the video, I'll be showing how to do this in color, incorporating dyed reed, which if you don't want to dye your own reed, then we do have regular dyed reed drops in our shop, or seasonal color palettes drop in our shop. So being part of our email list will give you first dibs on those drops. They are limited edition colorways we've designed, so if you are on our email list, you'll be the first to know. Okay, there's my second one. I need to throw my clamps in the corners here. Hold those in place. Okay, now set this one aside, go back to your first one, and take your clamps off. We're going to create the little legs. So bring this so that your kitty corner, bring your fingers on top of the legs, and you're going to grab it, fingers on top, thumbs underneath, rotate this around so that the ends loop around like this and touch at the end. I'm going to put a little dollop of glue on the end here, and we want the short end to line up with the long edge. So short end to long edge. This small one, because it's so small, it's going to be really easy to glue your fingers, which if you're using any sort of wood glue, is probably fine. You will have to let it dry a lot longer than I am. But if you're using a Tite Bond or some quick drying, this is like super glue. And if you've ever glued your fingers together with super glue, you know, it's not exactly a pleasant experience trying to get your fingers apart. So just be aware and try to keep your fingers out of the way. So I'm going to do the same thing to this corner, taking the 2 corner pieces, lining them up, gluing them together, and then get the clamp to sit right on the edge there so it holds those together. Wipe your fingers off if you get them gluey. Again, these 2 pieces, the fingers on top here really helps. So if you grip them like you're pinching the ends and then rotate these around, I need to trim this one down a little bit because it's too long, then that shifts them to the right angle so that you're creating the correct curve. Or if you do it opposite or you do them differently, then your snowflake won't fit together very well. So trying to get this pattern to form where you have your fingers on top, looping them around so that the underside now becomes the top. Then you line up these ends and glue them together, keeping them at 90 degrees to each other so that the short end lines up with the long edge will ensure that your loop is nice and wide. And you have a beautiful curve in your snowflake. That is the first set. Now, these 2 second pieces, we're going to do the same thing, but we have to trim them down just a little bit to make them a little shorter. So about a 1/4 inch I'm trimming off, and then loop down and underneath that first set, like so. I'll put a little dollop of glue through here. Clamp those together. Make sure that this center piece stays put. You don't cut it and you don't glue it. It needs to stay straight down the center. And once all of those have been glued, set this aside and repeat the same thing for your second piece. Now with your 2 pieces glued and clamped, we're ready to put them together as soon as the glue dries. So make sure your glue has dried and then go ahead and take off the clamps. Go ahead and take one of these and flip it so that the grid sits close against the table, and then the other one should be standing up away from the table. You're going to take these and sit them inside so that the one kind of sits kitty corner to the other, and then take these straight pieces and tuck them into the legs. So this straight piece right here, I'm going to bring up and forward into these. This one's going to go down between those. This one's going to come up. This one's going to go down. This one will come up. This one will go down, and then this one will come up and through. So it's situated like that. Now we can come in and glue these pieces to the ends. So you'll come into the first loop here and glue the end of that long straight piece to the end of the loop. And then the second loop in here, this one right here, I'm going to put a little dollop of glue right there, just a little bit away from the first one. Line this up right next to it and throw a clamp in to hold that in place. We'll do this all the way around, gluing those ends. The first loop to the very end of the straight piece, and then the second loop about a 1/4 inch away or so from the end, or from the first loop. This, because it's so small, you might want to do a few and then pause, because you might not be able to get all those clamps on all at the same time. When you've taken all the clamps off, you have a cute little miniature snowflake. To create a two-tone snowflake, we're going to create a grid where we're alternating a natural and a color. You can also do this with 2 colors. So because we're working in an odd number of pieces, we need to lay out 5 pieces in one direction. And I'm doing that by creating a natural, a color, a natural, a color, and then a natural. So that gets my 5 pieces across. Whenever you work in this snowflake, you want to make sure you're working in an odd number. So you can increase the number, do more than 5, but it needs to be an odd number so that you have the one piece down the center that's going to hold the snowflake together, and the pieces on either side that become the legs of the snowflake. So from here, my centerpiece then was the natural. I'm going to take another natural and weave that down my center. And then do a colorful next to that. And then a natural. And then flip the spoke weight over here, do a colorful, and then end with a natural. So we're creating that same grid. So we have 2 pieces that are identical. We want them to be the same size and the same pattern so that the legs of our snowflake fit together. Now you're going to go through the process of gluing the corners and then creating the legs of the snowflake, and then we'll combine the 2. Once your pieces are both glued for the legs, you're going to lay one so that the grid is face down, and then set the other piece on top so that the grid is up, so that they're pushing away from each other. And now you'll thread these center legs through the legs on the table, and then pull the ones that are on the table through up and through the loops. Like so. And then you're going to glue these ends to the ends of the loops, clamp these in place, glue this a little bit away from that first one, and then clamp this in place, and move around the snowflake until you've glued all the legs to the center lengths. With all the clamps in place, your piece is going to look like this, where each leg is attached with a clamp. You'll allow this to fully dry. You don't want your pieces to come apart, which, depending on the type of glue, might take 30 seconds or a full day. I want to show you 2 more versions where I used dyed reed and created a pattern with more than 5 lengths. These both have 7, which means that there are 3 legs in the snowflake. So if you look at this center portion, I'm going to bring my hand down here so you can see it better. I have a centerpiece, this large red piece, and I have a total of 7 pieces across. So I'm still working in an odd number, but I've just increased the number of pieces. So I've built my snowflake around these 2 centerpieces, the red pieces, and then incorporated the same pattern working in one direction as the other. So I did a thin red, a natural, a thin green, a red, a green, a natural, and a red. Same thing in this direction to create my grid. And then I wove a second piece in the exact same pattern, alternating those different colors, and then combined the two, and that created 3 tiers for the arms of my snowflake. Now this one is very similar. It's also 7, but I alternated just using 2 different colors. So I have the red, green, red, green, red, green, red, and then the same thing in the other direction. Still working in an odd number because I have 7 in both directions. I did the same thing on this side, and then because I have 7 pieces, I end up with 3 legs to the snowflake. You can increase the number of pieces in the center, but here are 2 different plaid patterns done in multiple different colors, and I'm incorporating 1/4 inch wide and 1/2 inch wide, alternating to add texture to the snowflake. Once your snowflake has completed drying, you can trim down the ends. So any little bits that are sticking off the ends here, I like to trim that down so it looks nice and clean. And then allow your snowflake to dry for about 24 hours to ensure that it's completely dry. And if you're using dyed reed, or even if you're using natural, I highly suggest spraying it with a clear sealer. This will protect it for years to come, so that if you use it as a tree topper or hang it in the window, any dust or dirt that gets on it will easily wipe off or wash off without having the reed bleed or it get roughed up or damaged. And until next time, check out this video. Happy weaving. See you later.